My name is Emma Taylor. I am in Physics 2, and this is my second project, and it is about how the sun produces heat and light. Here are just some facts about the sun. It is the closest star in the center of our solar system. It is the brightest object that is visible in the sky when you look outside. It is almost a perfect sphere, and it is around 4.6 billion years old. The surface temperature of the sun is around 5,500 degrees Celsius. When you look outside and you see the sun, it appears white. However, it contains a mixture of all of the colors of the rainbow, including red, orange, yellow, green, blues even, just every color that are in the rainbow. It is a huge ball of dense gas, unlike the Earth, which is solid. It is mostly made of hydrogen and helium, which is very important in making heat and light. The importance of the sun to us on Earth: it gives off heat and light that is needed to make the Earth livable for plants and animals. Plants will use the heat and light from the sun for a process called photosynthesis, where they make their sugar. The animals, humans included, will use the sugar that the plants make from photosynthesis for energy. The energy from the sun causes the weather that is experienced on Earth through the evaporation and the water cycle, as well as many others. So the gravity of the sun pulls its mass inward and creates a large amount of pressure. This pressure forces the atoms of the hydrogen and helium that are on the sun to fuse together, and this is also a very important part of how the sun creates light and heat. The energy that is created gives off different kinds of light here on Earth, as well as everywhere else, such as infrared light, ultraviolet light, and visible light. So the sun can create this large amount of energy because it is such a massive fusion reaction in itself. So it began when a large cloud of gas and particles collapsed under the force of its own gravity. And this actually created the ball of light at the center of our solar system, known as the sun, and it triggered the process where hydrogen began to fuse to create solar energy. So the sun consists of four main parts that are really important in the creation of heat and light. You have the core, which is the inner 25% of the sun's radius, which you can see in the picture shown beside the slide. You have the radiative zone, which is 45% of the sun's radius, and you have the convective zone, which is 30% of the sun's radius, both of which are pictured in this picture that I have here. And you also have the photosphere. So the core part of the sun, the layer, is a main component in producing energy for Earth. The core extends from the center of the sun to around 25% of the solar radius of the sun. It is the hottest layer of the sun with a large amount of pressure, and it is about 7 million degrees Kelvin. There are vast amounts of hydrogen atoms that are compressed and heated in this layer. Energy is produced by hydrogen atoms being converted into nuclei of helium, and this is known as nuclear fusion, which creates the heat and light that the sun gives off. So the whole point of this presentation is actually about how the sun produces heat and light, and the core is just a very big component in this process, and it has to do with where the hydrogen atoms are converted into the nuclei of helium in the nuclear fusion process. The core produces an appreciable amount of heat through a process of fusion, which I just talked about. 99% of energy produced by the sun takes place in this layer. So like I said, this is a major component, creating about 99% of the energy that the sun produces. You also have the radiative zone. The radiative zone makes up about 45% of the solar radius. In this layer, there is no thermal convection. Solar material is hot in the radiative zone, and it is dense enough that thermal radiation is all that is needed to transfer the heat generated from the core. So in this layer, ions of hydrogen and helium emit photons that will travel short distances before they are reabsorbed by other ions. And as I said a second ago, the core of the sun is about 7 million degrees Kelvin, and the radiative zone drops to about 2 million degrees Kelvin. So between the core of the sun and the radiative zone, there is a 5 million degree Kelvin difference. Next is the convective zone. This convective zone is the outer layer of the sun. It accounts for the other 30% of the sun's radius. The temperature is lower in the convective zone than it is on any of the other zones. In this zone, heavier atoms are not fully ionized, and convective currents develop in this zone. Rising thermal cells carry the majority of the heat outward to the sun's photosphere, which is the next layer that we'll talk about in just a second. Cells will sink to the base of the convection zone to continue the convective cycle to heat the Earth and give light to Earth. So the next layer is the photosphere. The photosphere is the visible surface of the sun. If you are looking at the sun from Earth or anywhere else, you will see the photosphere. So in the photosphere, sunlight and heat propagate out into space. The temperatures fall between 4,500 and 6,000 degrees Kelvin, and that just shows you the major temperature difference that occurs from the 7 million degrees Kelvin in the core, the 2 million degrees Kelvin in the radiative zone, all the way down to the 4,500 to 6,000 degree Kelvin in the photosphere. So the upper part of the photosphere is much cooler than the lower part, and this causes the sun to appear brighter in the center and darker on the edge or the limbs of the sun. Energy that is emitted propagates through space and reaches Earth's atmosphere to give heat and light. So on Earth, the Earth filters much of the sun's ultraviolet light at the ozone layer. However, some of the ultraviolet light will pass onto the surface of Earth. The energy that is received by Earth is received from the sun by the Earth's air and crust, which will heat our planet and provide organisms with a source of energy. And that energy is required for life on Earth. So this energy that is produced by the sun is just a massive amount. And of the amount of energy that is produced by the sun, only 1/3 of it is reflected back into space by clouds and snow. 40% of this energy warms the Earth. 25% of the energy from the sun is used in the water cycle. 1% is absorbed by winds and ocean currents. And less than 1% is used by plants during photosynthesis. And even though it's less than 1% of the energy produced by the sun, it's still a very important part of life on Earth. So the sun is the center of all biological and chemical processes that occur on Earth. And without the energy that is created by the sun, life cycles on Earth would end and would eventually lead to all life on Earth ceasing to exist. So this just shows you the importance of the sun and the energy that produces the heat and light that reaches the Earth, because without this nuclear fusion reaction occurring and the hydrogen being converted into the helium atoms and everything else, life on Earth would cease to exist completely. Here are just the sources that I used while doing my research on this. I found this very important and very important, and I think that it's just amazing how, this, what seems to be such a simple reaction that occurs on the sun in its different layers, allows life to be lived on Earth through plants and animals and everything else. Thank you.